What is going on, you beautiful humans? And today we are going to be tackling a topic that affects absolutely everyone, and that is building up an emergency fund. This isn't about saving your way to wealth and nickel and diming every aspect of your life because that's just miserable. But let's be real, because life throws a few punches, and based on what's going on now, many of us are getting punched in the mouth. And it's not a matter of if an unexpected expense will hit, but when. And those surprises, like a car needing some new shoes, a sudden job loss, or your dog's vet bill, that can quickly derail your finances and cause major stress. And I believe that many of you have heard that the Federal Reserve found that nearly 40% of Americans wouldn't even be able to cover an unexpected $400 expense without borrowing money or selling something. And honestly, that is frightening, and I'm sure raising a blood pressure or two. Now, I know I've mentioned before about building a little bit of a buffer, and starting with a $1,000 emergency fund is just the start, and we're going to be talking about how to do this even when you're currently living paycheck to paycheck. So step one is the power of small steps, and I get it. Saving $1,000 can seem really daunting, especially if you're struggling to make ends meet. And you might be thinking, $1,000, I can even save $10. But the biggest mistake that people seem to be making is trying to do too much too soon and then just throwing their hands up. They go all in, they burn out, and then they just completely walk away from it. But you gotta think of this as some financial muscle here that you're building over time. You wouldn't head to the gym on your first day of training and try to bench 3 plates from the get. So the same really does go for saving. You got to start ridiculously small, and I am really talking about $10 or $20 a week. And it might seem insignificant, but the math will start mathing. And I know that at $20 a week, you'll hit like, what, $1,000 in just 15 weeks, just shy of a year, which seems like, why in the world should I bother with this? But here's the thing, consistency is key. The consistency is what builds the habit. Even if you can only spare $10 this week, do it. But then here's the thing, you got to make it non-negotiable like it's a bill. So set a reminder on your phone, put a sticky note on your mirror, whatever it takes. But you got to visualize your progress too. So using a chart or an app to track your savings and you see that number grow, that is incredibly motivating. And you can use like a simple piece of paper and color it in as you go, or there's some great apps out there. I know one of them is like Capital. They're not like sponsoring this or anything, but you could also use a simple spreadsheet if that is your jam, but apps like, Capital are certainly helping you keep an eye and letting you see that savings goal and automating your contributions. But here's the thing, you also got to try not to keep all of this in your head, because when you can actually see it, it just becomes more tangible. And here's the thing, so incremental increases. So as you get comfortable with saving, you gradually increase that amount. So maybe go up from $10 to $20 to $25, then $30. This, of course, is a habit where you start to shrink that year by quite a bit. Each increase builds your confidence and it gets you closer to your goal much faster. And don't beat yourself up. If you miss a week, don't throw in the towel, because life happens. And the same goes for the gym too. Just get your butt back in there and start putting in the reps. Just get back on track the next week. We are all human. Remember, it is about progress and not perfection. Then, of course, there is step 2. So you got to track your spending. This is absolutely crucial, and this is where most people fall down. We live in a world of convenience. There is tap to pay, there's online shopping, there are subscription services. It's so easy to lose track of where our money is going. And of course, a recent study by Intuit found that over 70% of Americans don't even know exactly where their money is going each month. And that is a huge problem. You cannot effectively save if you have no idea where your money is leaking out. And here's the thing, I love old school. So let's go old school first. I have tried this with my own kids, and I'll admit it was tough for them. But for at least 1 week, try tracking every single expense. Carry a small notebook or use a dedicated app. You write down everything from that $1 gum to that $50 dinner. This might seem tedious, but it's eye-opening. Even my kids actually started to see some of the impulse buys that didn't really fill their cups, except for that Polar Pop that was at the Circle K. But honestly, you'll start to see patterns that you never noticed before. And then of course, you got to categorize your spending. And once you have a week's worth of data, categorize it. This is where you'll really see where your money is going. And of course, how much you are spending on it, all of these like categories. So you got food and groceries versus takeout. And the USDA had some report that came out that Americans are spending an average of $3,000 per year on food outside of the home. And it'd be interesting to see, like, are you above that or are you below that average? Then, of course, there is transportation. So you got gas, insurance, maintenance, public transportation, and of course, ride sharing. And you got those important costs. You got the housing, so that's rent, your mortgage, your utilities. You got entertainment. Yes, you got to have a little entertainment, of course, but there's also the shopping, and that is online versus in store. You got your bills, so that could be your utilities, your phone, and your internet. Then you've got those debt payments. That's your student loans and your credit cards. And then there's that miscellaneous, and those are the small random purchases, like maybe like the dollar gum or the Polar Pops. But you've got to identify your spending triggers. Are you an impulse buyer? Do you spend more when you're stressed out or bored? Maybe you're more likely to splurge when you're with certain friends or after a long day at work. Knowing your triggers can help you avoid them. And here's the thing, you can look at it at the 80-20 rule, and I've actually just spilled some water because I'm talking so fast and my mouth got dry, but hey, we got to keep going. So anyway, apply that Pareto principle. So where there's 20% of your expenses causing 80% of the drain, focus on cutting back in those key areas. And for example, you might find that takeout and online shopping make up the bulk of your unnecessary spending. And then of course, step 3 is slash and burn your unnecessary expenses. And I want to emphasize, as I was saying before, unnecessary. I need to reiterate these things here. This isn't about depriving yourself or living on rice and beans. It's about being honest with yourselves about what you truly value versus what's just draining your bank accounts. It's about finding that balance between enjoying your life and being financially responsible. And I personally would rather put my money toward experiences rather than just like the stuff, but hey, that is just me. And then of course, it's auditing those subscriptions. This is a big one, and we average spending about $273 per month on subscription services, and that might even be a little bit low, but that's over $3,000 a year. You got to go through your bank statements and credit card bills to look at this. And how many subscriptions are you paying for? Streaming services, like, do you really need Netflix, Hulu, and Disney Plus? Although like with Hulu and the Bear, I mean, there is that, but like, I don't know. It really kind of depends, like, what are you watching the most? Then of course, there are music subscriptions. Could you bundle YouTube Premium to get YouTube Music like as part of that? Or like Apple One subscriptions where you get the Apple TV, the arcade, the news, and then Apple Music. Then of course, there are the gym memberships. Are you actually going to the gym? And if not, consider cheaper alternatives like online workout videos, but don't sacrifice your health, because I am all for hitting the gym, and I'm actually finding some deals out there right now and building out my own home gym. But I also know that not everyone can do that. And then of course, there is the takeout trap, and eating out is a major budget killer. And if you're gonna be eating out, those fast casual restaurant visits are going to add up to that tune of $3,000 per year, as I previously mentioned. Now, I know that when I was really dialed in on some of my business projects, my billable hour that I gave myself was way higher than what I'd be spending on grabbing food, so I could actually stay on the grind. But for you, that might not be the case, so you need to calculate how much you're spending on takeout per week. And this is actually where I ended up starting to meal prep those lunches. So I'm always meal prepping, which is what I do each week. And I would just much rather take that money and spend a little bit extra on a nicer meal. It's not like a frequent thing that I do, but it's just something that I can look forward to celebrate a little bit on reaching a certain milestone, and even the small ones. And then of course, there are those impulse buys. This is where tracking your spending really helps. What are those random, non-essential purchases that you regret later? Are they the clothes that you don't wear, the gadgets that you're not using, that new kitchen gadget that is literally like still in the box? I usually implement a 24-hour pause on the smaller purchases and at least a 72-hour pause like on the pricier ones. And I often just kind of forget about it after that time. And then kind of mixing in with the subscription piece is bundling and negotiating, a big one here. So as I mentioned earlier, there may be some bundled services that offer you some savings. And I know that there was a while ago that Xfinity was running a deal where you could get a free Peacock streaming service with their internet service. So you could also be negotiating a better rate on your insurance. And I heard that insurance is actually going up by another 5% pretty much across the board in some areas, and it may be higher in some of those other areas. But hey, it never hurts to ask. And then there's step 4, and that is making it automatic. This is where you take that human element out of the equation. Automation takes the willpower out of saving. It's like putting your savings on autopilot, and you're essentially paying your future self first, before you even have a chance to spend that money. You paycheck split. So if this is possible, the ideal scenario here is to have your employer split your paychecks, and a portion goes directly to your checking account for those bills, and a portion goes directly to your savings. And according to the American Payroll Association, while not all employers offer this, it is becoming increasingly common. So check with your HR departments to see if it's an option. And it might just be built into your digital setup. Like you might actually be able to do this on your own. This is the most effective way to save consistently. But if you don't have that, you can set up automatic transfers. If a paycheck split isn't an option, set up that automatic transfer from your checking account to your savings account. Almost all banks will offer that. And if they don't, then switch banks. And of course, speaking of bank, if you haven't already opened up a high yield savings account, put your emergency fund in that high yield savings account. It will earn you more interest than a regular savings account, so your money grows faster. And as of today, you can find high yield savings accounts with interest rates significantly higher than those traditional savings accounts. Now, here's the thing, frequency. Whether it's weekly or bi-weekly transfers, these are ideal depending on when your pay period is, as they will align with most pay schedules. Now, that monthly transfer, like you could set that up and that's okay, but you might be more tempted to spend that money before that transfer date. Then, of course, the date. So scheduling the transfer for the day after payday so that you know the money is actually in there, like it's cleared and everything's good. And of course, the amount. Just start small. Start with a small amount that we talked about earlier, like $10 or $20, and gradually increase it. And then, of course, out of sight, out of mind. Make it a little more difficult to access your emergency fund. Don't link it to your debit card for everyday spending, but you still want to make it accessible in a real emergency, but not for those impulse purchases. Automation tools are the way to go. So you got to explore apps like either Digit or Acorns that can automate savings, like when it comes to small amounts based on your spending habits. These apps analyze your income and spending and automatically transfer small amounts of money to your accounts without even noticing it. And then, of course, there's step 5, and that is finding some extra cash. And this might require some hustle and creativity, but it can significantly accelerate your savings and get you to that $1,000 goal much, much faster. So decluttering and selling. This is a classic piece of advice, but it works. The average household has hundreds, if not thousands of dollars worth of unused items. You got to be ruthless here. If you haven't used it in the last year, seriously consider selling it. Sentimental value does not pay the bills. And I'm not telling you to throw out like your childhood photos or photos of your kids and stuff like that. You know what I'm talking about. Now, of course, there are online marketplaces. Now, there's Facebook Marketplace, eBay, Poshmark, and Depop. These are great for selling clothes, could be electronics, furniture, and other items. Facebook Marketplace can be good for local sales because you're avoiding shipping hassles, but you also get hit with a lot of messages like, is this still available? Then, of course, there are some consignment store options. If you don't have time for online selling, consignment stores will sell your items for you, but they will take a cut. But this is a good option for higher value items anyway. Then, of course, there's a good old yard sales, and I like going to yard sales because I've often found items for resale. But if you're looking for a way to get rid of stuff, this could be a good way, but also your time is worth something here. So if you really find yourself sitting out there from sun up until like later in the afternoon and you don't typically have a lot of traffic to your neighborhood, then really think about this one. Now, if it's a neighborhood sale, then your chances to make a few more dollars is certainly going to increase there. Then, of course, there are the side hustles, and I posted a video about this one where you can explore ways to earn extra income outside of your regular job. The temp work and the freelance opportunities, they're out there. They do exist, and with some of the job market uncertainty, businesses may be utilizing these services more to fill those gaps that they have due to the cutbacks. Then, of course, there is the obvious of negotiating your salary. I know that this may be a tricky one right now, but if things seem to be going well at work and you've been keeping your ear to the rail on how things are going at the company, it also might be time for you to start working on this plan. You can use a site like Glassdoor and salary.com to see where your benchmark is for your particular position and the years of experience that you have. And if you do get that raise, then just remember that that extra money should be going to your savings to build that fund faster, not having that lifestyle creep up, and up. Now, cashback rewards only if you are someone that pays off their credit card every month. Don't carry that balance. because this can actually be helpful if you are someone who zeroes out that balance every month, and using those cashback apps and credit cards can earn you a small percentage back on those purchases that you're already making. So for example, if you spend $1,000 a month on your credit card and you earn 2% cash back, well, that's $20 extra a month. But don't just go out and spend $1,000 just to get $20, because that is just terrible math. It's only if you're already spending for those things and that you need or that you've planned for, and then it actually becomes like a nice little perk. And then of course, step 6, gosh, you got to celebrate those small wins. This is important for staying motivated. Saving money can feel like a sacrifice. It is a constant exercise in delayed gratification, so you need to reward yourself in a controlled way, of course, but you got to keep it going. It's about creating a positive feedback loop. So set some milestones, break down your $1,000 goal into smaller, more manageable milestones, and you can plan those celebrations where deciding in advance how you will celebrate each milestone. So this gives you something to look forward to and helps you stay on track. So you keep it budget friendly, and your reward shouldn't derail your progress or negate your savings, but the key is to find ways to treat yourself without breaking the bank. So for that $200 mark, treat yourself to a nice meal at home. Cook your favorite dish and treat it like it's a date night at home. And you can even do this if you're single. I mean, I'd date me. Then of course, that next step, $500. Buy a small item that you've been wanting, like a nice piece of clothing that you'll actually wear and that you've budgeted for. And then of course, moving up to $750. You could take a day trip to a place that you may not often visit, but you really wish that you did. And you can have actually a fun experience like going to a concert. But again, I know concert tickets are ridiculous, so just be mindful of that one. Now, there is the $1,000 one. And here's the thing, that's a big one. Celebrate in a much bigger way, but still responsibly, and maybe go out for a nice dinner or plan a weekend getaway. You gotta focus on that feeling. You gotta enjoy the sense of accomplishment and security that comes with reaching your goals. Savor those moments and acknowledge your hard work. Don't compare yourself to others because everyone's financial situation is completely different than yours. Focus on your own journey and your own progress and your own goals. So there you have it, a practical, no-nonsense guide to building your $1,000 emergency fund even when you're paycheck to paycheck. It's not about magic or get rich quick. It's about small, consistent actions, tracking your spending, you're cutting back on your unnecessary expenses, and you're automating your savings and finding some extra cash and celebrating your progress. And remember, this is achievable even if your budget is really, really tight. It's about prioritizing your financial well-being and taking control of your finances one step at a time. And as always, I appreciate your time and I would love to hear from you. So what are your favorite emergency saving tips here? I would love for you to share them in the comment section below. Stay informed and stay empowered on your next level up, and I will catch you right back here on the next one.